An editing botch makes the air last night on AEW Collision that may have revealed that Keith Lee's pre-tape interview segment took 22 takes. Was it an accident? Was it intentional? Keith Lee has reacted to it. Mike Santana has also reacted to his segment being scrapped from Collision last night, which did have some production difficulties. Edge and WWE reportedly are apart on money at the moment, according to Dave Meltzer. Where will the Rated R superstar land next? Ricky Starks versus Bryan Danielson is set for next week's episode of AEW Collision. How did CM Punk's exit affect MJF's current AEW storyline plans? An Australia Stadium show is set to be announced by WWE in the coming days. John Cena seemingly has been announced for Crown Jewel. FTR versus Aussie Open is set for Wrestle Dream for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Rob Van Dam will be making his AEW return next week on AEW Collision. The Ring of Honor 6-man tag team titles are going to be on the line on Rampage Grand Slam next week with the Elite challenging for the titles. And Chris Statlander retains her TBS Championship last night on AEW Collision. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off with something that's taken social media by storm overnight, and that is this editing botch that happened during AEW Collision. Now, there was an editing botch on last night's Collision airing as the show cut to the back for an interview segment. Now, featuring a seemingly unedited take, a producer was heard saying, quote, "Take 22, Collision," clapping and then counting interviewer Lexi Nair before she began. She then began by greeting Keith Lee, and the pair were joined by Shane Taylor and Lee Moriarty shortly thereafter. There wasn't any particularly complex dialogue exchange, rather seemingly setting up the continued contemptuous relations between Keith Lee and Shane Taylor. While the clip was posted to the official AEW social media channels shortly thereafter, it was by that point edited to remove the piece in question. Although it doesn't stop the online sleuths from immediately getting grabs and sharing around online of the usually not seen moment of the backstage segment. Now, some people are suggesting that maybe this wasn't a botch because later on in the show, Ricky Starks and Big Bill had a similar situation where they had the clapper board there and Big Bill told him to get away. But some people are suggesting that maybe that was more of a parody and AEW trying to either cover for themselves or make light of the situation. Now, Keith Lee himself has since reacted to this on social media. He posted the following tweet just saying, LOL, laughing seemingly at the production botch. But also, it was a night that was kind of riddled with some production and technical difficulties for AEW. Now, during the show, it appeared that a segment featuring Mike Santana was scrapped after a confrontation between Andrade El Idolo and Jay White. Commentator Kevin Kelly was getting ready to introduce a Santana segment. However, after mentioning Santana, Kelly paused for a noticeable amount of time, reminiscent of what would happen if he was learning of a change of plans, and abruptly switched gears to introduce a Kota Ibushi / Kenny Omega video package instead. With the show finished, there was no Santana segment after all, and the show had a last-minute overrun too, so there did appear to be some timing issues and production issues just throughout the show. Santana has seemingly responded to this after the show by tweeting the following, quote, "Wow, okay, I got you," basically referring to possibly his segment being scrapped from the show. But as I mentioned, there were production issues throughout the show as well. As I mentioned, there was the backstage interview with Keith Lee that turned into a confrontation with Lee Moriarty and Shane Taylor. A producer, director, whatever you want to call him, briefly shown in shot clapping and saying take 22, easy for me to say, Collision, which seemingly should have been edited out before it aired. Ricky Starks, as I mentioned, parodied that botch later on in the show. There was also an audio issue during the rundown of the cards with two audio tracks playing at the same time for a considerable amount of time. In addition to that, there was a change to the match announced shortly before the show started as Evil Uno versus Anthony Bowens was changed to John Silver versus Bowens. So what are your thoughts on all of this? Is this just a case of it's live TV, these things can happen? Or is it a case of discombobulation and things not really being planned out that well? What are your thoughts about all of it? Let me know your thoughts about these issues in the comments section below. And lots of people are wondering about the future of Edge, who has been linked with a move to All Elite Wrestling. On the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer spoke about one of the things that has stalled Edge in possibly re-signing with WWE. According to Meltzer, it's indeed money issues. Here's indeed what he had to say about it. He said, quote, "It's the same thing with Edge and McIntyre. Not that those deals are dead in WWE, but they're not close on money, and that's where it stands. It's not like somebody, whatever these people ask for, it's not like it's a rubber stamp, even though WWE is loaded with money. Tony's running a business. WWE is running a business. They have an idea of a salary scale. WWE can afford anything and anyone, but they're not. They have a mental salary scale of what people in certain positions get, and some of the guys want more or think they deserve something to commiserate that and to people that the company thinks are higher level and they think they're at the same level of. So that's kind of the situation, and it goes again on both sides. So, according to Dave Meltzer at the moment, the Edge deal isn't dead in the water by any stretch of the imagination, but there is differences of opinion when it comes to money. Edge had his farewell match on the August 18 edition of SmackDown where he defeated Sheamus. Since then, rumours have been swirling around that he's going to join his former tag team partner Christian Cage in All Elite Wrestling. It's also interesting to note that Cage himself recently just signed a new AEW contract. During the All Out post-scrum, he revealed that he signed a, quote, big fat contract. Now, the AEW rumours were in full force when Edge was removed from WWE's internal roster earlier this week, though it wasn't long after that WWE had reportedly put him back on the roster or actually just kind of moved him to a miscellaneous section of it involved with other talents such as The Undertaker, Big E, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and others of people that aren't listed towards a brand, and they're not really sure where it kind of sits at the moment. Edge has noted previously that he does have a contract extension in his inbox, and he's just waiting to decide where he wants to go next, or what he wants to do next as well. So let me know your thoughts about that. Ricky Starks and Bryan Danielson, their feud has been continuing, and it's going to continue next week on Collision. Last week on AEW Collision, Bryan Danielson challenged Zack Sabre Jr. and announced that he's likely to retire or possibly slow down in about a year when his daughter turns 7. Before he had the chance to finish addressing the crowd, Ricky Starks and Big Bill made their way to the ring and after exchanging a few words with Danielson, attacked him. Last night, Danielson had his chance at revenge as he teamed with fellow Blackpool Combat Club member Claudio Castagnoli against Big Bill and Ricky Starks in the opening match in State College, Pennsylvania. The early going of the match was dominated by the duo of Ricky Starks and Big Bill. At one point, Danielson tagged out and spent a noticeable amount of time lying down outside of the ring. However, Danielson quickly jumped back in the ring. When he noticed both Big Bill and Starks in the ring, he promptly attacked Big Bill, sending him outside of the ring. Later, Danielson went for a belly-to-back suplex that was reversed by Starks. Soon after that, Starks connected with a low blow and hit his Rochambeau finisher to score a pinfall victory over the American Dragon. Now, this has then led to plans for next week's show. As I mentioned in the show, Ricky Starks scored a tag team victory over Bryan Danielson. However, that victory is apparently not enough for Absolute. Later in the show, he was interviewed by Tony Schiavone, and he indicated that he wanted more, stating that he was beyond exhausted at how the company promotes Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr., whom he referred to as simply, quote, a guy that doesn't even work here. Starks said he wanted to become Danielson's nightmare and face him in a Texas death match. Now, the Texas death match in question will take place on next week's episode of AEW Collision. Stark says he plans on going to lengths that he's never gone to before and that he will be putting an end to this whole fiasco that's known as Bryan Danielson. In the only other match aside from last night's tag team bout, Danielson, as I mentioned, defeated Starks. The bout held at AEW's All Out pay-per-view event on September 3rd was also one-on-one with special rules being a strap match. Since the debut of Collision, Starks has been a focal point of the show. He has already appeared on 4 out of the 14 main events in the show's short history, which particularly is impressive given that he was suspended from in-ring activity for 30 days following his attack on Hall of Famer Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. During his 30-day suspension, revised to 28 days, Starks managed Big Bill, who continues to accompany him throughout all of his appearances. So next week we're getting Danielson versus Starks once again, this time in a Texas death match. Now, CM Punk was front and center on Collision for a long time prior to being fired, and there's been an update on whether or not AEW had any plans to shift the real world title picture between MJF with possibly CM Punk being fired as well, and what was going on with that. With some fans wondering if creative had to quickly shift directions in light of CM Punk being fired with, of course, All Elite Wrestling, there is now an update. CM Punk, as I mentioned, was fired following an incident backstage at AEW All in London, which Tony Khan said made him feel like his life was in danger. In an update from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, it's clarified how the current storyline was impacted, and it sounds as though it didn't require the significant retooling one might imagine. Their sources noted that Samoa Joe's plans were already in place post AEW All In. Samoa Joe was always scheduled to lose the Real World Championship bout against CM Punk at the event in London. And despite the plan for Punk to still have the bout, Samoa Joe was always planned to then go on to feud with MJF, as is occurring on AEW television now. Now, the last intriguing bit of intel, according to the report, quote, there were not immediate plans for an MJF/CM Punk program. Now, there's still no word on whether or not CM Punk has any kind of non-compete clause in place. He did, however, send fans into a tizzy this past weekend when he used some intriguing language while on commentary for Cage Fighting Fury Championships 125, saying that he has some time on his hands for the next 2 months, possibly indicating that indeed a non-compete is possibly active right now. Now let's switch gears here and talk about WWE and a stadium show that is set to be announced in the next few days. While there have been previous reports out of Perth, Australia that WWE officials had visited, it now seems that post-merger with UFC endeavour to form TKO, WWE is ready to put pen to paper. The West Australian has posted an article saying, quote, one of the great sporting spectacles in the world is coming to Perth, with US giant World Wrestling Entertainment bringing the extravaganza to Western Australia. The Sunday Times understands the Cook government and the Professional Wrestling Promotion Company are just days away from announcing a WWE show at Optus Stadium in early 2024, before the start of the AFL season in late March. Now, Optus Stadium has a capacity of between 60 to 70,000 depending on the setup, so it seems this show would likely be a major international premium live event. WWE hasn't been on tour in Australia since 2019, as planned tours in 2020 and 2021 were cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, in terms of major events, WWE held Super Showdown in Melbourne, Australia in October of 2018 at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, which was said to have an attendance of around 62,000 fans. That show was headlined by The Undertaker versus Triple H in a no-holds-barred match. Of course, if we get any more confirmation, once it's officially announced, we'll let you know in a future video about WWE's plans for the event. Speaking of big international premium live events, John Cena reportedly is set for Crown Jewel. WWE fans have recently been able to actually see John Cena on their television screens, but he might be sticking around for even longer. According to a new promotional video, he'll be making a very big upcoming appearance for WWE. In a clip released by Riyadh Season to promote a variety of upcoming events, not only was WWE Crown Jewel specifically mentioned, but one very big star was named as participating. While the logo was shown, a clip featuring Roman Reigns was shown, John Cena was specifically named in the clip as scheduled to participate. Despite having wrestled at the non-televised show in India, Superstar Showdown, John Cena has not yet wrestled a match on television since WrestleMania 39. However, we seem to be getting a bit closer as he made his in-ring return on American soil at this week's SmackDown taping in Denver, teaming up in a dark match with AJ Styles. But now it's looking like he's actually being advertised, as I mentioned, for the Crown Jewel event. What do you think Cena could be doing? What matches would you like to see him have? Is that where he could possibly face off against Solo Sikoa? Let me know your thoughts about that, as always, in the comments section below. Now, FTR, they've got a busy couple of weeks ahead of them. Last night from State College, Pennsylvania on AEW Collision, FTR defended the AEW World Tag Team titles against the team of the Iron Savages. The Iron Savages took control to start the match. However, it wasn't long before FTR turned the tables on their challengers. In fact, the AEW World Tag Team champions made fairly quick work of their challengers, scoring the victory over them by hitting the Power and Glory finisher. Following the victory, the champions were met in the ring with their next challengers for the AEW World Tag Team titles, the Workhorsemen, who have competed mainly on Ring of Honor on Honor Club in recent months. The Workhorsemen will receive their title shot on next week's episode of AEW Collision. However, the Workhorsemen are not the only tag team to emerge as challengers to FTR's championships on Collision that evening. Later in the evening, following a decisive victory over two newcomers to All Elite Wrestling, Aussie Open challenged FTR to a title match. That match will take place at the upcoming Wrestle Dream pay-per-view event on October 1st in Seattle, Washington. Of course, Aussie Open were the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions until losing the titles to MJF and Adam Cole on the 0-hour portion of All In less than 3 weeks ago. So that match is set for Wrestle Dream in a few weeks' time. Rob Van Dam is going to be back inside of an AEW ring next week on Collision. While he was last seen in action in AEW on August 9 against Jack Perry, it seems that RVD is ready for more as he was announced to appear next week for Collision. Not only that, but the graphic displayed on screen literally said returns to the ring in his home state, although his opponent was not confirmed. Elsewhere announced for the Saturday, September 23rd show, Jay White is set for action against Andrade El Idolo after the latter defeated Scorpio Sky in last night's show before being confronted by Bullet Club Gold. As I mentioned, you've got that Danielson Starks Texas Death match as well, and FTR putting their titles on the line, but RVD is going to be back inside of an AEW ring. Let me know your thoughts about that. Now, next week, of course, it's Grand Slam, not only Dynamite, but also Rampage, and the Ring of Honor World Tag Team, Six-Man Tag Team Championships, rather, are going to be on the line next week. The Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Champions, the Mogul Embassy, have 3 new opponents after this past Saturday's episode of Collision. During the show, the Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page called out the champs and demanded a match next Friday on AEW Rampage Grand Slam. The match was later confirmed and added to the September 22nd show. On the September 13th episode of Dynamite, Page defeated The Machine, and in the post-match, he called out Swerve Strickland, who for most of the match watched from the ramp. Strickland said he wanted a match against Page at the Wrestle Dream event on October 1st. While he was speaking, The Machine attacked Page from behind, but the Bucks were there to save him with a super kick. Matt and Nick Jackson also super kicked Prince Nana. It's worth noting that the Bucks and Page have held the titles together before in their careers, with their reign lasting from August 2017 to March 2018. Matt and Nick were also champions with now current WWE star Cody Rhodes in 2018, and their reign lasted from July to November. Cage, Corn, and Leona have held the Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team titles since defeating Dalton Castle and the Boys at Final Battle in December 2022. One of their last title defenses was against Action Andretti, Darius Martin, and Lee Johnson on the August 31st episode of Ring of Honor on Honor Club. Of course, next week's Rampage show, Rampage Grand Slam, is a 2-hour event, as is tradition. Finally, Chris Statlander, after defeating Jade Cargill 24 hours prior, taped on Rampage, got another successful and impressive title defense in last night on AEW Collision. On Rampage, Chris Statlander successfully defended her TBS title against former champion Jade Cargill, coming off the victory over a seemingly departing Cargill. The AEW TBS champion faced another top-notch challenger, former AEW Women's World Champion Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. The bout marked the first time that a women's title match was the main event of AEW Collision. With the match taking place in Baker's home state, the crowd was clearly behind the challenger from the very beginning. The match was fairly even in the early going. At one point, it appeared as though Statlander landed awkwardly and perhaps injured her knee, but she later delivered a suplex reminiscent of Davey Boy Smith, thereby eliminating concerns that the champion was seriously injured. With the crowd chanting DMD, Statlander ascended the ropes and missed a moonsault. Baker then went on offense and worked on the knee that appeared to be injured earlier on in the match. Later, Baker put on her infamous glove and attempted to go for the lockjaw mandible claw. However, Statlander fought back and escaped before Baker was able to apply the hold. Statlander charged at Baker, who moved, and Statlander subsequently hit the turnbuckles with her knee. Baker then hit the Canadian Destroyer, Angel Wings, and curb stop before nearly pinning the champion. However, Baker continued to bring the offense and eventually put on the lockjaw mandible claw. While still in the lockjaw submission hold, Statlander maneuvered the challenger into a pinning position and scored the victory. However, following the victory, Julia Hart was seen as watching from the audience as Statlander helped Baker up to her feet and the two shook hands. So maybe Julia Hart is going to be the next challenger for the title. But there you go, guys. Latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.